340 cubic inches, a high-performance engine. Mark Mormon coming at you from beautiful downtown Springfield, Oregon, where it never rains. That's right, folks, it never rains here. This ground is wet because of the tears shed by happy new customers. Take a look at the sale of the week. 1973 Dodge Challenger Rally. That's right, it's a 340 numbers matching automatic transmission wearing what? FY1 original top banana paint. That's right, that is original paint, folks. These little lines right here where you can see through the paint, that's good. That's character lines. Look at those bumpers. Tell me that isn't a couple of double C bumpers right there coming at you. Rally wheels, give them a little kick right there. Look at that nose. They call that the frowny face. That's right. You a miserable human being? This is your car. Upside down, frowny face. I ain't done yet. Look at that interior. Bucket seats, console, tachometer, 150 mile an hour speedometer. This is all show and all go. Now remember one thing, folks, at the end of the day, this is old honest Mark. He never tells a lie. If I'm lying, I am dying. Come on down to Graveyard Motors in downtown Springfield, Oregon. Check out this little jewel. This is what we call the special of the week. Wait. That's how you make a commercial.
Beneath the fog, behind the rust, sometimes they come back. There's only one internationally recognized Mopar master, Mark Warman, joined by his friends, family, and dream team, the Ghouls.
Nobody wants to take on the stuff that we take on.
Reviving the past,
100% untouched survivor.
resurrecting the icons of American muscle,
We are the Shaolin priests of Mopar.
uncovering stories,
It's the baddest car we have here.
and restoring dreams,
The most iconic muscle car on the planet.
putting cars back where they belong. On the road.
Here we go.
Beyond a passion,
Oh, that's wild.
one man's obsession with Mopar perfection. This is Graveyard Carz.
My name is Mark Warman. As most of you already know, I am the sole creator of the global franchise Graveyard Carz here in Springfield, Oregon.
Partially true. I'm Aaron Smith, executive producer and co-creator of Graveyard Carz.
After that car hits this lot, what do we do next, Aaron?
Disassembly.
We inventory all of the parts that are on the car, inventory the structure of the car, the condition of the car. We digitally document it in the way of either film or still photographs. I usually take my own stills. That takes us up to where we know we're okay to disassemble a car. Would that be the next thing we would do?
Yes.
So once we've inventoried the parts, once the car has been completely disassembled and put into those parts pods, what is the next thing that would happen?
We're going to send the body of the car to the dipper.
Send the body out to be dipped. We chemically dip all of the cars. Car comes back from the dipper, it shows up here, we've seen it, we saw it with Malmberg. What happened when Malmberg's 1971 Hemi Cuda came back? What do we do?
We're going to assess it for what kind of metal work needs to be done.
So all this needs is cleaned up too. That's the first car, period, bar none, that didn't need at least a section of a floor. So once the car comes back in here and we have all the parts and we're ready to go on to it, we begin replacing the parts. We put it on a frame jig that was custom built by my shop at my direction. And if a car sets down and lines up with all these pegs and holes that we have in our little frame jig, we know it's square. At this point, we have a car that has had all of its metal on it. Let's say everything's on it is squared. The metal guy's obligation is to make sure that the lines and the gaps on that car won't need any adjusting when it goes over into the mudroom. So once it gets into the mudroom, we hand everything off to Will. He works directly with the mud guy out there, Michael, who's also been with us quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
Does a phenomenal job. It's day after day, week after week of sanding to be able to get it exactly where the technician at the time feels it needs to be. What happens after that?
Goes back over to paint to get a layer of primer and then more body work.
No. It goes back over to paint to be inspected by Will.
So I just come out here, so I'm gonna push it for no reason. Right here, that's a kind of a broken out little edge that needs to be addressed for sure.
So before you start laying that stuff on there, you should make sure you're not primering over 36 grit scratches, 80 grit scratches, lumpy body work. If he does those things, then he is able to go to the next step, which is to apply 3 to 4 coats of acrylic urethane primer on there. After it has sat, it is in a position where it can go back out to the body man, and the body man will begin what we call the...
Cut.
No,
It's not cutting, sorry, it's the long block.
But blocking,
Long
that's
block.
right, that's right. It goes back out to the body man where he blocks it or long blocks it. Takes a long flat board on the long areas. There's a lot of short areas that you can't use a long board on. But for the most part, we call it block sanding. You get the primer on there, it comes back. After he blocks it, you may see where he's added a little more mud or taken more off and broke through that primer. At that point, he does a second primer. Second primer is the same thing, around 3 coats of the acrylic urethane primer. Let it set for 2 weeks. Keep in mind, folks, there's still 30 cars in process, maybe more, at the same time getting the same things right on the heels of that. Goes back out to the mudroom for a second block after the primer. Once that's happened, it makes it into the paint shop where we can begin the paint process. What happens after that? I forget.
We blow it
sometimes.
apart and we jam it.
Blow it apart and we jam it. That's actually reasonably close to what happens.
Use the vernacular.
We disassemble the metal panels off the car. It goes in there and has all the jam work. That is where you paint the parts that you couldn't paint if the car was put together. At that point, you also have to paint and jam the car body. Once Will has the jam work done, he sends a note over to Dougie.
Yeah.
At that time, when the click goes, Doug gets the word to get the drivetrain down and get it restored and rebuilt. That takes him on an average of 4 to 6 weeks by the time we get the engine back from the engine shop. So in a perfect world, that engine, transmission, rear end, drivetrain, everything comes over here within a week or 2 of each other so that we can put the suspension underneath the car with the drivetrain in it. And why do we need to do that? Aaron Smith.
To make it a roller.
To make it a roller. Why does it need to be a roller as soon as possible?
So we can proceed with the rest of the assembly stuff.
Which would require it rolling.
I was gonna go there, but I
Rolling,
thought that was kind
sure.
of implied.
Part of that,
Sorry.
Yeah, no, well, we like to spoon feed here at Graveyard Cars. That brings you up, folks, to a car setting here, like many of them, where it has the drivetrain in it. It's sitting in the middle shop. We'll usually get glamour shots of it. All it's got is it's a beautiful red car with a beautiful drivetrain in it, but we're a long way from Tipperary. It's a long way.
Oh boy. Okay.
Remember that?
We're doing the singing today.
Yes.
Coming up,
My very favorite part.
Mark returns to a very personal project, the engine for the tribute to his first 1969 Charger.
Marky light, marky light.
But will frequent trips down memory lane
Ever tell you about the time old Dougie outran the police?
distract them from a crucial detail?
It seemed like he got real quiet there.
Yeah.
Find out when Graveyard Cars returns.
So somewhere in that process, Brian gets the word. He knows that 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, there's going to be a car in here, a blue Charger with a white top that needs to be put together. That's how early he starts prepping out all of those parts. But once that car is all together, Brian does an initial check just to make sure that this car is safe enough that it can go out and have a wheel alignment done. Final glass set, which is usually the windshield and the back glass. The very last things we do are decals, the information labels, as well as assembly line markings. My very favorite part, and probably everybody here because we get to say goodbye to it, is the test drive. I'm looking for squeaks and leaks and rattles and bangs and oil drips. I'm looking for things that it shouldn't have if we just finished restoring the car. And I have never, ever, ever in all my life brought one back to the shop that didn't have something on it. The last steps are those final moments where Brian just goes out. Maybe he has to readjust the window, maybe he has to adjust the rear brakes up, lubes this, but it is done. The best part, call the customer, coordinate the delivery of the car, pay me.
Yeah, there's that.
I needs my money better than the hog needs slop now.
You are emphatic about the final step.
I do like that final step. Once that's done, we load it up in the car hauler, whichever one it is, and it gets to go home. C'est la vie. Hasta la vista, pinche.
We should probably recap also that this season we've got 4 cars done.
We did do 4 cars.
Yeah, the blue 72 Charger.
Oh yeah, beautiful car. Yeah, gorgeous color, 72 Charger, 318 automatic.
Yep.
1 owner. This year we were able to deliver a EF8 green 1970 Cuda 446 barrel 4-speed car. Beautiful, beautiful numbers matching car. Another car was a 1969 Dodge Charger RTSE 440 4-speed. That car was absolutely stunning when it was done. And a 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner, which is an awesome car, 446 barrel. And that car is beautiful, FC7 in violet, black interior, no vinyl top, white transverse stripe on the back. That is not a numbers engine, but it's a date-coded engine. Absolutely beautiful car. So that's another one we got rid of this year. Now, one of the things that we've done this season that we started is the rebirth, if you will, of my old car, my old 70 Charger. Yep. Remember I chased it down, the original one I found out was destroyed. Well, it's not your fault. She confirmed that they did crush the car. The car that I decided to build is a 1970 Dodge Charger that actually came along with another 1970 Dodge Charger that we're restoring. But it's really, really, really a rusty, rough car. So rough that we have got a ton of time. Josh and I have been doing it on the weekends. We actually had to put a front clip on the car. We talked about it briefly in one of the episodes recently. We did share the dash assembly. I got an original 70 dash assembly and completely restored it, built it out to the way that my dash was with the 8-track on it. I added air conditioning to it, modified the stereo to be an AM/FM Bluetooth. But the rest is everything that I ever wanted.
You had some really cool customized seats in your original Charger, and so you went out of your way to find the exact same material that you had had back then was kind of a challenge.
I was told it was crushed velvet when I was a kid. I don't know if it was or wasn't.
Yeah.
This isn't crushed velvet, but it is a velvet material. Maybe it isn't exact. It was 40 years ago that I saw it, but my brain says it's exact. And I walk by them and I just feel content. I feel, I don't know if that's weird, it's like a talisman or something.
It takes you back.
It takes me back and I feel comfortable. And it's like, as crazy as that is, but maybe some of you guys will recognize that.
Yeah, those little things that kind of anchor you to some area that you're happy or you're peaceful, and that's like, that makes sense, man.
So the engine that I had in my car, folks, when I got rid of it, when I traded it into J.L. Morgan Motors, was a 1968 D 440 HP. So what I decided to do was build a 440 exactly like that. I had a 68 440 that I'd been saving out here for a long time in the event I ever got an opportunity to do it. It is a D 440, just like mine was, but mine and my Charger, remember, was an HP. This one was not an HP, but I stamped it HP in the spirit of, I'm not trying to fool anybody, it's just the internals that make it an HP. It's just for me, and believe me, it's HP. I'm taking a lot of, as Tony D'Agostino would say, liberties. Number one, I had Phillips Racecraft up out of Washington build it, did the machine work, took it 60 thousandths over. I had chose the Edelbrock E Street, like E Street band.
Springsteen.
Yep. When you install the E Street aluminum head, you can't use the original head bolts. If you look at the fastener they give you to use versus the original one, you could imagine that the original one, which is an 11/16 head, would never fit down in the recess provision. You have to use these head bolts that come with it, which I believe are an ARP head bolt. So we used their head bolts, but we still used original spark plug wire retainers. But the spark plug wire retainers that we normally use, I had to modify to fit down in those very small holes that the aftermarket bolts go into as well. But when you look at it, we have original spark plug wire separators on. The heads are in place, they're torqued down. After the heads are on, all the fun bolt-on stuff. You don't understand any of this stuff. A roller cam, roller rockers, and roller lifters. I wanted them as a kid. Everybody that had the big money had those. But when I was putting this together, I talked to John up at Phillips. I said, what do you think, man? Should I do it? And he goes, well, it's a lot less resistance. You're gonna be able to get a lot more lift. We can really get wild with the cam. So we put a huge cam, basically the same specs as a Mother Thumper cam, except in a roller cam. It has a profile of a Mother Thumper, but it's a roller cam. We used the Comp double roller timing chain and gear set that has the multiple keyways on it. Now, I'm not doing anything with that, but you can advance the cam timing. This motor, even though it's gonna have a lot of performance parts on it, I've tried really hard to maintain an original appearance in any area that I could. Well, these are pretty trick. We haven't done roller lifters yet, just for the record. They're pretty cool. Like, if you look at these little boogers. Okay, so installing the lifters is just like installing the lifters on a regular engine. They work independently of each other, but this little thing holds them together. Now, if you look carefully, a couple things. See, there's a roller. Look at that nice little roller. That's going to ride on the camshaft. That means less friction and longer life, I would imagine. They are hydraulic. You look, you see the little hole. So the other end very clearly looks just like the top of a regular Mopar lifter. This little booger here is going to go down in there like that, fit right into it nicely. The other end is going to fit into this really nicely like that, and that's going to make up our valve train. So we'll get a little bit of oil. Since they're roller, all we need is oil. Right, Dougie?
That's right.
We'll just dip those bad boys in there. Hang on, you crazy. What happened?
Did I just go crazy?
You went a little crazy. You went a little crazy. Okay, let's just take these and dip them in there. All right, we'll just run in there like that. Get those dry off a little bit there. And why don't we just put them right in this hole here? Doug, would you hold that, please? You don't want to force it. There we go, and it just drops in there like that. Is that touch in there?
Yep.
Yep, nice. So there's one set. So we're just going to repeat the same thing right here.
Rinse and repeat, right?
Lather, rinse, and repeat. Okay, so with that, I can go ahead and put that side in. Why don't I hold that for you there, Douglas? Grab one at a time.
Right in there?
Give him dip, give him dip, give him dip. Make sure the arrow's pointing up.
Dippity Doo, huh?
Yeah, well, he hears the word dip and immediately his brain goes to the only thing apparently, which is really weird, that sounds right in there, and it's Dippity Doo. Do you know what Dippity Doo is?
Part of Dippity Doo-Dah?
No. Dippity Doo is I believe a hair gel of some sort. My mom had it. Every time Dougie come over, he'd see Dippity Doo on the counter. And he'd run around for the whole afternoon saying Dippity Doo, Dippity Doo, Dippity Doo, Dippity Doo, Dippity Doo. So when I said dip, it just triggered that old response from him. So what goes on up in there? You'd have to ask his father. My mom used Dippity Doo.
She did.
Yeah. Okay. Drop that in. Oh,
Marky like, Marky like. Oh, look at all that.
Yeah.
Ooh, look at all that.
Dougie, 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 Dougie. Where the hell's that come from? What insane recesses of that pea brain of yours. His dad used to say he had a pea brain. Well, I didn't come up with it. I didn't invent it.
Well, I think you did.
I invented Marky Likey, Marky Likey.
Yeah.
I think somebody else invented that.
Well, it wasn't me.
We'd be driving down the road and there'll be a girl. Marky Likey? I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm stopped at a light. I can't see anything. You missed it. Okay.
Who would say something like that?
You.
Excuse me?
You prevert.
No. For the record, that's not true.
I believe that it's time to put our push rods in. What do you think of that? We have all of our lifters in place. If it works right, it should go right down through that hole there into the lifter itself, just like that. The next thing to do is to install all of the push rods, all 16 push rods. After that, we'll be able to roll the rocker assembly up into place. Nice. That's a nice little setup. Boy, I'm surprised how high that lifter rides in the bore.
I know.
But it explains why these push rods are so short. So here now is where the train begins to come off the tracks a little bit. Never said I was a genius. Mom always said I was a borderline genius, whatever that number is. So
Yeah.
I'm not a genius.
No, borderline.
Borderline a
something.
genius,
Yeah.
yeah. The lifters riding so high in the bore should have been a real signal to me. I call it a smoke signal that said, something wrong. Because the distance between that lifter and that rocker shaft isn't going to change. Everything is in place and where it belongs. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install the rocker assemblies. Ever tell you about the time old Dougie outran the police?
Which time?
All the way from Veneta into Glenwood, and then you jumped in the mill race to get away from him, but the dog drug you out?
Wasn't me. Once again.
Oh, it was one of my cousins. Oh, it was Kenny. Oh, he was a jewel. Kenny learned everything, his other cousin, about running from the police from Doug.
Well, it's easier to drive.
Running from the police metaphorically, certainly driving or running. Kenny jumped out a balcony, second floor balcony to get away and shattered both of his ankles, right?
It's unfortunate.
You stole a pizza from the pizza parlor you worked for and a handful of quarters so you could play Dig Dug, and then took off on your Honda 750, but they caught him 3 days later.
That was Bagman.
Yeah, and they, Bagman, that's true, it's my bad. But you had to go to jail, and you
I
met
did
that
not.
guy named Ben. Mr. Dover?
Nope, never met that guy.
Could have swore that was you.
Nope.
All right, here, folks, is our roller rocker shafts. I'm gonna set that right there, and I'm gonna say, look at that little booger, how it rolls. This is the part that's gonna roll on the valve. This is gonna roll on the valve right there. These are all roller. You have your ball and ball. Remember, the push rod is a ball on both ends on this setup. And over here, we have that little Allen wrench for adjusting and a lock nut. The only difference here is you'll notice that we've got a stud here and a stud here. These two represent the studs. So now we're going to take these and we're going to roll them up like that, just like we installed the other ones. See if we can go high enough to get this down here and drop that right there. And then it's a matter of lining up all of our push rods.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because it seemed like you got real quiet there.
Yeah. So upon further investigation, excuse me, ma'am, upon further investigation, I couldn't help but notice that that lifter I mentioned sticking up out of the boreways is a problem. It's a problem. It turns out, in fairness and in my defense, I didn't read anything online when I bought this stuff, that you have to have a special push rod. But it turns out the push rods that I've been saying stock length push rods would work great, that's a lie. They are too long. So factory push rod is 9 1/4 inches long.
Okay.
After playing with it, after we cut and ruined the filming for the day, it turns out that I needed an 8 5/8 length push rod. So folks, I'm not going to be able to finish my engine this season like I had hoped, but you can bet your sweet bippy that I'm going to have that running early next season, and it's gonna be a K-schnorkeler. I got stuff on there that'll blow your mind.
Still to come, Brody gets the chance to paint a 1970 Cuda belonging to one of his favorite guitarists. But what happens when he's caught exposing his father's secrets on network TV?
He's getting away with so much stuff that you guys don't see.
Mark reveals a unique 70 racing Cuda after his engine build is cut short. But will a surprise delivery restore his excitement in the project?
What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box?
Find out when Graveyard Carz returns.
Jim Root of Slipknot. Jimmy, I call him.
Not to his face.
No, not to his face, not because I'm afraid of him. We took his car in. It is a beautiful car. 70 Cuda, 446 barrel, 4-speed super track pack. It's a monochromatic. Can I use that word?
Absolutely.
Is that upsetting you?
No, not upset at all.
And they only had one color that came in monochromatic. And what color is that?
FE5 Rally Red?
Very good. Carz is a beautiful car, very, very solid car, but it was hugely disappointing when I found out that the numbers in the block had been stamped into it. It was a real disappointment for Jimbo. I call him Jimbo or Jimmy. But you could clearly see that the ID pad on the top, when you line it up next to it, his numbers on the left there look nothing like the font on the ones on the right. If you look at the milling marks, the 10-inch milling marks on the engine on the right, you can see that they are considerably coarser than the ones that are on the left. Go down to the VIN pad on the side of the block. Some of the different digits just do not match. And there are no milling marks in that because they've ground all the milling marks off to restamp it. That doesn't mean it's not a great car. It is a 446 barrel 4-speed. It's a rare car and well worth investing the time and the money into, which is why we carried on with the restoration. It was a beautiful body, so we knocked out all the body work quick. It went over to mud, they did a beautiful job. Made it over to where we are now, which is in Will and Brody's capable hands, getting ready to do the final spot prime on it and blow it apart.
I'm doing the second prime for Mr. Roots 70 Cuda. I am a big Slipknot fan. This has been kind of like almost like a fangirl moment per se. So I didn't even realize Jim Roots' car was here. I was doing our DP90 work, and my dad was like, "Oh, do you know who this is?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "He's some guitarist from a metal band." I'm like, "Oh, what one?" He's like, "I don't know. Do your research."
Now this car's been primed and blocked 3 times, but what you see on the side of that car when you look carefully are little, I call them peekaboos. There are areas where when block sanding it to that perfect look, remember you take the highs down to meet the lows, sometimes by the time you take the highs down, you break through the primer. We don't want that. We never paint over a breakthrough. So Brody is mixing up enough primer to go around the breakthroughs 2 times, maybe 3, and then 1 trip around the car. After that, it is ready to block, blow apart, as you would say, and start jamming.
It's easier because it is a small car. It's not like the Chargers and Roadrunners and GTXs I've done. It'll be a lot quicker, which is nice, but you still gotta be meticulous with everything. In fact, I gotta be even more meticulous because my dad's eyes are starting to go bad, so I gotta make sure I can see everything that he can't. He's supposed to have glasses. He got prescribed glasses like 10 years ago and doesn't wear them.
I like to see this about Brody. We can see his growth over the last couple of years, and when he's talking about the process, it's obvious that he's learning it, he's getting a mastery of it, and he's getting confident in it.
But it's also the fact that his dad's not there to keep him down. Not in there right with him. He's watching over him, but he's not there coaching. When we do an interview with those two, it's like the zombie twins, right? It's hard to get anything out of them. But now look at him in there, informative, giving information out, talking about the mix. I mean, everything he's doing is with an authority. That's what happens when he gets away from his dad and he tries to borrow a branch from my tree.
I'm gonna be doing the jam work for Roots' car, E5 red. So that'll be exciting, and it's single stage, so make the process a lot quicker.
So you're working less with your dad on this car?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of cut me loose on everything. I mean, he's still, gonna supervise and whatnot like he should, but I feel like, with all the jam work stuff, I can pretty much do on my own. I'm sure he'll definitely be looking through the window watching. He'll be waving, and then you guys will turn around for TV purposes, and he'll go from me off to the thumbs up. He's getting away with so much stuff that you guys don't see. He's not all rainbows and unicorns like he says he is.
The reason I really love this car isn't because it's an original one-of-one Hemi Cuda. It's because it's so cliche to the time period that I was racing cars and driving and fixing my car up. And, boom, this era here, I think 78, somewhere in that range. One of the cars that I bought recently represents my childhood in many ways. Okay, first off, I'll tell you what it is. It's a 1971 Cuda. It's a real Cuda. It's 383 automatic. It's good stuff. It's a real 71. This car, back in the 70s and up through probably very recently, was a race car. Just keep in mind, in 1978, nobody knew these cars were going to be worth a fortune. Guys wanted to drag race, both on the street and on the strip. If you wanted to go racing, you had to kind of what we call hack one up. This is that car. If you go back and you find these old ads, race car, Hemi Cuda, race car, 440, race car, because back when we were kids, these cars weren't worth anything. And so if you wanted to go fast at the racetrack, the one thing you had to have was the car. You didn't have to have it appear as original. This is a car that's a 1971 Cuda. It's one of 1,168 ever made. Underneath the hood is the numbers matching engine and transmission to the car. So I wanted to share what it meant back in the day if you were gonna take a Barracuda or a Cuda or a Challenger or whatever and go racing. Overall, looks like a real car. 71 Cuda grille, 71 Cuda header. I believe this is made of fiberglass. This is a steel hood, but we put that on. This is one of our graveyard cars, used cars that I bought. Steel fenders. Stopping here, Cuda louvers, got our Cuda louvers, gotta have Cuda louvers. That is the end of stock. After that, everything is modified. Number one, you'll notice there's no dash inside that car. The thing I just banged on is plexiglass. Looking down the side, the door looks original, the quarter panel looks original, fair enough. You look inside, several things jump out. Again, plexiglass, all original looking main floor. Now, when you look inside this car, all the evidence of it being a race car. Let's just talk about the roll cage for a minute. It had a built-in welded-in roll cage. I think it was a 6-point roll cage, which was a requirement from NHRA if you were going to go a certain speed. There's evidence on the floors, which need to be replaced. So when we put new floors in there, like in the front, it won't have that provision because we're making it into a street car. Let's talk about what back halving a car means. Okay, we work our way down to the back end. We've got a quarter panel here. Quarter looks like a factory quarter panel, looks OEM. But notice this, how flexy that is right there. He has cut everything out of the back of this car and done what we call a back half. This guy did his own, and a lot of guys that race did their own. It's an inexpensive way to go fast. Take a look at that back end area. Everything's missing. No trunk floor extensions, no wheel houses, inner or outer. Everything's gone from in here. The quarter panels are reinforced right here. If you look right through there, you'll see how those just have a piece of sheet metal pulled around them on both sides. To put this into some kind of a perspective of what this back halving can mean, take a look at the catalog Cuda.
Right.
All right. Go to the beginning stages when George and I are working on it. Let's say we start by putting the frame rails up there. We put the front frame rails in place and we put the rear frame rails. Okay, forget the rear frame rails. They've cut them out of this car. You see us put a trunk pan down? There's no trunk pan on this car. The wheel houses that we painstakingly put in place, they're gone. The under seat pan that helped us build the floor structure, all that trouble we went to build, it doesn't exist in this car. They've cut it out. You see a couple of tubular bars there?
Yeah.
He welded some suspension onto the tubular bars that are basically holding the rear body panel from flopping like this. That's all they do. Tied it into the front frame rails, and that gave him enough strength, I guess, to go, well, with the roll cage and some other things. I don't want to underplay it. It was a safe car.
Oh, yeah.
But he took out everything. Hundreds of pounds. I don't know what it would all weigh if you added it up. But you open up and look through the trunk, there's no trunk floor. There's like a potato chip out there. When it's all over, we're gonna be able to replace all those parts with the factory original replica parts, the AMD stuff. It's gonna be like building the catalog Cuda, but a way, way, way easier.
And also, this is going to be an actual.
And this is a real
matching.
BS23 November. Yep.
Wow.
This is a neat car that has every ability to be a blue chip investment grade Mopar. Just before I raise it up, show you under the hood what I was talking about, the fact that this car is really very original from the windshield forward. So he has done some patchwork in the upper cowl panel area and hinge mounting area from Russ. These cars get it. But the rest of it isn't cut up. A lot of guys cut the firewall out of these cars, cut the inner fenders out, put strut rods in to try to lighten it up, reinforce the frame rails. All this is original stuff. Wrong radiator, God knows where that come from. This is the original numbers matching block. Numbers. But point is, everything here is original. We'll end up putting patches in the aprons, a little bit on the firewalls on both sides, and we still have our original curious yellow hood. Now the great news about that is on an E-body, all the numbers that make it a real car reside at the front, in that cowl, upper cowl panel, and the tie bar. So whether you're replacing all of that sheet metal because it got cut out, and made into a race car, or whether you replace all that sheet metal because it's rotten, the results are the same. All we're doing is restoring a car that happens to have all of its original body numbers.
Yeah.
Better than that, the gentleman that made this into a race car that I bought it from saved the original block, original transmission, original fender tag, broadcast sheet, dash VIN, which can't be made.
Oh, wow.
Everything is there to build a 383 automatic 71 Cuda in one of the most popular colors, Curious Yellow.
Wow.
All right, so we have the original K-member and suspension. That's good. Bolted to, of course, the original frame rails. The torsion bar cross member area is savable, definitely. It's just had these, what I believe to be tow hooks welded onto the bottom of it that'll have to come off, and we'll have to clean up the cross member. With that, I'm going to let it down, move it out, we'll get it disassembled over to the dipper, bring it back, and then Josh and Shane and the guys can start assessing what metal needs to be replaced. We can get it ordered, get it installed, and start building this car back out. But a numbers matching 71 Curious Yellow 383 automatic, one of 1,168, is well worth putting the time into. Now, you'll notice we're standing in front of a big box right here. Now, Dougie knows what's in the box, but hasn't seen what's in the box. Royal's been asking, what's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box? Kind of like that movie. What's in the box? What's in the box? Remember that?
Well,
7?
I didn't see that movie.
Whatever. Royal, as insane as this may or may not sound to you, inside this box, can't believe I'm actually saying it, is the original rear end housing and axles out of my Charger.
No way.
It's a long story.
Really?
You know the car got crushed?
Uh-huh.
Well, the guy went back that helped me find the car that got crushed,
Uh-huh.
asked the people who had it, who took it in to get crushed, if by chance, for any reason, they would have had anything they took off the car. And the guy says, I got a rear end leaning up against the wall in my garage with some axles that was under that car.
Wow. Wow, what are the
I
chances?
took a look at the picture. It's a 70 only because these are 70 only housings.
Uh-huh.
It has to be the one. It has the Unilug lug nuts on it that I had on my mag wheels.
Oh, wow.
That I hated with a passion because they almost got me killed. So I wanted you and Doug to be here.
Oh, cool.
Believe it or not, I've actually built out my complete rear end. I had the whole thing built out when I, Mark Warman, discovered for the first time that the 70 position for the distribution block for the rear brakes is in a lower position than it is in 68 and 69. It would work, you just use the lines for a 68 or a 69, but you guys know me, I don't like to do that. So that got me thinking, and then I remembered that he had written me somewhere years ago saying that he thinks he's got the axle out of the car. And I had forgot all about it and I didn't care. But now I care, and I chased him down, and this is it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Let's see if it's in here. Dougie, cut that end open for me, old buddy. This is big stuff. I have not seen it either. It is all taped up. This is real cuts. This isn't that TV land cutting stuff. This is real. Yeah. This is the big one.
There you go, Royal.
Rollo, go ahead. You knock yourself out there, buddy.
Ready?
Open her up.
We're waiting for you.
Oh God, we got a lot of packaging in there. I told you this is real. Okay.
Wow.
We'll clean up afterwards. This is like Christmas, right?
Every day. Yeah.
Boy, he did a good job of packing. Oh my gosh. Folksy folksies.
Wow.
Holy crap.
Axles and everything. Oh.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, this is a huge deal for you, but on a tribute car, this tiny little axle that's going to be underneath your car, not even visible, why is that a big deal?
It's the only part to my original car, so that means something to me. It's kind of the same reason that the steering wheel meant something to Kimberly Cook, right? Or the shifter meant something to Murray Goodings. 69 Super Beat Johnson had the white ball instead of the wood grain ball, and things like that. When you look at that and you realize that your hands were on that rear end, your memory, thank God you have it, really transports you a little bit to that day we were out there, and things become more vivid. Memories become more vivid the more you focus on them because your brain has it all in there. It's just what it brings up. And so I see Doug and me out there with a bottle jack, getting the car off the ground, and I see us swapping it out, and it took hours. And then I see me doing the big burnout. I physically see it in my brain, as crazy as it is. So when I touch that rear end housing, to me, it is the key to the past. And it's a nothing, it's a throwaway. It's rotten, it's rusty, it's in horrible shape. That rear end is worth more to me than all the Dana 60s and every other car that's here. And for me, I think the one thing I gained from it really was a reset, folks. I bring everybody in the world's dreams back to life again. And I sit back and I think to myself, man, that really hit them hard. Man, that was really emotional. To me, I see now, even more clear than I ever did before, what these cars mean to these people.
That's awesome.
Oh, this is the rear end that I swapped out the third member in your Barracuda into because you didn't believe they wouldn't believe my Charger would do dualies. We call them dualies, pause traction, sure grip. They said, yeah, big old boat anchor like that's nose heavy. It's got a one-wheel drive rear end. I said, no, it'll still do a half-a-mile burnout with dualies. It doesn't matter. Well, I didn't have one, so we took the one out of Doug's 70 Barracuda and we put it in this housing right here, folks. Right smack dab there.
Wow. You did a great job.
Whoa. Wow. And see this hole where it's located? 68 and 69, maybe even 67, I'm not sure, is up here. This one being down like that is correct.
I would have never guessed.
These are the lug nuts. I touched these lug nuts 45, 50 years ago. I had unilugs on the back of it.
Rusted, huh?
You remember how your daddy gave you everything like the wheels and the tires? Well, I didn't have that. I had a father who had passed on. And so what I ended up doing was my best I could to get my car looking good. And I went down there to the tire store on 34th, Randy's. Wasn't it Randy's, 34th or 35th? And I bought a pair of used 14-inch, 14 by 10s. And that's what I had on the back of that car. With great big meats, I had M50 14s on the back of that car. And these are the lug nuts that held the wheels on. Wow.
Check that
well,
side.
it's a little bit rusty.
Yes, it is.
It's from Texas.
Yep.
Wow. Is that crazy?
It's also how old?
Yeah, it is. It's
I'll have
amazing.
to weld the tabs on. The tabs are broken off.
Man, somebody tightened that down
Man,
tight, didn't they?
did. Wow. That's okay. There isn't anything here I can't fix with a little bit of filler and a little bit of metal work. So what do you think? There will be one original part on my car.
This
That's
is awesome.
So guys, the next time you see this housing, it'll be completely painted and reassembled with all the correct parts.
Nice. Wow, the chances of that finding something like that.
back on the memory of the dance we shared neath the stars above. For a moment, all the world was right. But how could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye?
Is that
and
Garth
now,
Brooks?
yeah, God rest his soul.
I don't think
I'm
he's dead.
glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance.
We managed to get dancing into the episode.
See ya. Cut. All right.